Visiting NYC in 2022. Decide to ask a girl I barely knew out on a date. She of course texts back declining. I chuckle to myself, put my phone back in my pocket, and keep walking down 42nd St. As I look up I see a homeless guy. He had a really malevolent vibe, so I immediately look away lest I make eye contact accidentally. Walk past him and walk into a chain to get some lunch. While I'm waiting in line I hear the door open behind me. Of course it's the homeless guy. He says, "I guess she didn't like you very much," and leaves. I just stare out the door in shock. No clue how he could have known that. My only explanation is that he was possessed by a devil. Here's one I was told. Be friend of mine. Attracts spooks like I'm shit to their flies. Decide to go ghost hunting at an old ranch. Group is setting up equipment by the main house. Wander by a shed, feel a strong pull towards it. Fall into a trance, get pulled in as I walk by the door, which locks behind me. Incredible horrid, evil vibes. Start screaming. Get let out but fuck off from that ghost hunting venture. She didn't learn. Be same friend. Investigating a graveyard with the same group as before. Whole lotta jack and shit, getting dark, so we pack up to leave. Graveyard is surrounding by an old wrought iron fence and a stream. Extra normal senses tingling, look back and see a figure in a white dress, a beautiful woman, standing just beyond the iron fence looking down at us. Pretty sure she ran into one of the goof neighbors that day after she told me about it, cause if the details lining up with some fairy lore. This is a different friend of mine. Be my other friend. Decide to go on a ghost tour in some shit ass mine. Why? I'm kinda retarded. Get the shit beaten out of me by unseen entities throwing rocks and shaking chains when I wander away from the group. Still fucking wander off during these outings afterwards. And one of mine. Be me, not stupid enough to go searching for spooks. Chilling in bed, bookshelf serving as a backboard. Look over to find my remote. Pale face peeking from the bottom of the bookshelf. Freeze. It zips away and just vanishes. After pulling my heart out of my fucking throat, I turn on the lights and do not sleep for the rest of the night. Be me. 16 yo. Live in a small town. Nothing even remotely cool happening. One day my friends talk about this weird rock they found near the river. Since we're already going fishing, might as well check it out. Rock is really damn big, like almost 4 feet in diameter, 1/3 submerged in water. No idea where it came from, it certainly didn't wash in there by itself. Ask why are they so obsessed with it all of a sudden. They tell me it's because if you sleep near it, you get weird dreams. Realize I'm being pranked, tell friends to fuck off with their bullshit. They insist it's true. Whatever, let's go fish already. Settle near the rock anyway since it's a decent enough place. Doze off around the noon anyway, it's a cozy summer day. Have a weirdly vivid dream about being chased by something, vivid enough that I wake up screaming. Immediately almost shit myself in embarrassment because imagine waking up screaming like a bitch right before your friend's eyes. Strangely enough they don't laugh and say the sort of thing happened to them too. But the strangest part was that sometimes dreams were pleasant. Don't believe them, but we go back to the rock later on because what, you scared of bad dreams huh bitch? Interestingly enough, second time the dream is different. It's still strangely vivid, but in it I'm having passionate sex with my sister who acts weirdly smug. What? In total we camp around the rock 12 times that summer, and every time dreams are extremely vivid and either terrifying or revolve around taboo-breaking sex. No one actually said exactly what they saw, but all agreed that it was always more than just wet dreams or nightmares, and scenarios seemed to repeat. One day we come back to the rock and discover that it's no longer there. Vanished as suddenly as it appeared. My hometown was so fucking bland that the best it got in spooky department was a fucking bad dream inducing rock. When I was 17 I had a really big fascination with snipers and ghillie suits and stuff like that, and so did my friend. This ends up with us buying a bunch of gill suit gear and airsoft snipers. We like to camp and decide to go camp in the woods and LARP as ghillie snipers for the weekend. Be us. Our neighborhood runs along a golf course that borders a forest that goes on for ages. We have to walk through a well-lit path and then through a small strip of woods to get onto the golf course. The plan is to wait for nightfall on Friday, sneak through the golf course and into the woods, hike deep into the woods and camp for the weekend before coming back Sunday night. Prep goes well and night is approaching, sneak out the back door and have my sister lock it behind us. My friend, who we'll call Steven, has a cheap NV monocle, so he leads the way through the small strip of woods that separate the neighborhood and golf course. We are trying our best to keep quiet and not make so much noise. Our ears abruptly begin to ring in high pitch, almost like we go deaf and we can't hear anything, like we are underwater. Steven pulls on my arm and says something, but it sounds so muffled. He starts pulling me through the brush until we make out onto the golf course. Ringing subsides and we both look at each other like, what the hell? Not the time to talk about it, so we set up to do recon over the golf course to plan the next move. I know it's not the most interesting story and the weird stuff happens when we reach the forest. If anyone is interested I can continue. Pic rel is of me taken by Steven. Didn't want to waste my time. Full moon, so it's bright enough to use our scopes to look out over the course. Plus the NVG shits itself over that distance, so the scopes are a better option. As we are panning over the course we are teasing each other with the typical, "What the hell is that? Shit, it's the cops trying to freak the other out." Visible from our position is the main complex plus a few smaller maintenance sheds, along with one larger barn structure. Out of all of them it looks the weirdest. Steven drops his voice and goes, "Shit man, I think there's something over there." Think he is fucking with me, so I go, "Let's go then, we can sneak up there, it won't even see us." Steven seems genuinely freaked and starts talking about how we should just head back home, but I push and say that it's probably just animals. Peer pressure gets him to crouch walk over to the building. From far out it looked normal, but as we got close it seemed to get darker. The wood was rotten and dark and it just looked derelict. There was a break in the side from which we used the monocle to peek inside and nothing seemed to be inside. Best guess was it was a storage barn for something like manure or mulch, I'm not sure. It was just empty at the time. The hayloft is slanted down, and there is a stair leading up to it. It's pitch dark up there and none of us want to look. We suddenly are aware of a clicking noise, kinda like the clicker in Band of Brothers, coming from the hayloft. Steven refuses to go up the steps, but I really want to see what's up there, so I make him hold the flashlight and tell him to turn it on when I motion it. I try to quietly climb the steps and hold out my phone and motion for him to turn the light on, and I take pic rel. Why not use the flash? Because I wasn't sure how far back it went, plus the flash on my phone kinda sucks and I just wanted to make sure if I captured anything it was a good pic. Obviously I don't get anything, and Steven, upon hearing that there isn't anything, peeks his head up and shines the light around and it really is empty. The clicking sound is still going on and I'm starting to get weirded out, but Steven has gotten over his fear and ushers us to keep going, so we leave the barn still staying low to the ground. As we are walking towards the forest, clouds move over the moon, so we have to switch back to the monocle. As we get further from the barn the clicking noise disappears. The course is about a golf course or so wide and we are nearing the entry point to the forest we were gunning for when the clouds disappear from the moon. Right before we enter, Steven takes one last look back through the scope at the barn and slaps my shoulder and points. I do the same and am a little lost when Steven hisses, "Roof, look at the fucking roof." There's a crouching figure on the roof. It looks like it's wearing clothes, but it looks almost emaciated and its proportions look exaggerated. It was looking away from us, so I didn't get a look at its face, but it just looked weird. I put down the gun and look at Steven and we start planning what to do. If we pushed deep enough into the woods we could set up camp away from that thing. Steven goes, fuck that, let's just go home. Honestly, looking back, this was super retarded. We could have just walked back, but we were really freaked out, so that was my best idea. We jogged/walked for about 30 minutes and we figured we made it about a mile in, so we began setting up camp. I'm gonna speed this part up. Fire kept us warm throughout the night and nothing happened for the rest of the night, and we both took shifts sleeping. In the morning we cooked soup and then cooked meat in the broth, which was super yummy. We began the next hike, which was 3 miles into a spot where Google Maps said there was a pond. The plan was to set up by the bank, sleep Saturday night and head back Sunday and arrive home Sunday night. We packed our bags heavier than expected and the hike took a bit longer than planned, and we arrived by the pond in the late afternoon. We set up a bit of a lean-to against a tree and set up the fire bigger than the last. By the time we had set up with the little daylight we had, we cut down trees and gathered firewood. Neither of us were saying it, but we were a little nervous for the night but kept putting the feeling aside. The water was kind of calming, so I think that might have played a part. As nightfall arrives we cook the remaining meat and pour the grease over sticks to use as starters if the fire dies. We had turned the surrounding camp area into a nice little position, which helped Steven and me relax a bit more. Nighttime comes and I have first sleep. Pass out from the day immediately. To this day, even with fevers of 102, I still have not had such a weird dream. It starts where I'm in my bed at home and feel like I have a rock in my stomach. Getting up out of bed feels like slow motion and I walk to my door to the hallway. Opening it, I'm back in the woods. Dread starts to creep over me and I go to return to my room, but the door is gone. I'm shaken awake by Steven going, dude. It's fucking here. I shoot up and grab my airsoft gun for comfort more than anything else, lol. The fire is dying, so I throw on a grease log and the blaze illuminates the surrounding area and I see a figure standing behind a tree a bit ways away from out camp. We are both panicking. The only thing we had were the airsoft guns, a small baby Browning .25 that wouldn't do shit. I pulled it out of my pack regardless and pointed in the direction of the thing and squeezed the trigger. The little pop does nothing more than scare the creature out from behind the tree, in which it takes long strides further into the woods. I only have 13 shots, so I put it away. Neither of us can sleep, so I begin to heat up some water for tea while he scans the woods with his monocle. A couple of hours pass and we begin to hear rustling again, so we both are up at attention and me with the handgun. Steven starts pointing into the dark. Right there, man, shoot it. I can't see shit, so I just shoot in the general direction. The rustling keeps getting closer and we both say fuck it and tumble out of our camp and start running towards the water. I look over my shoulder and see this tall figure almost shuffling through the brush towards. Steven is in front of me, so I try to aim and shoot, but it either misses or does nothing as it keeps chasing. We splash into the lake and I trip and end up dunked in the water. I recover quick and the thing is almost upon us. Its face was weird and it looked like it was just slits in a clay mold of a face. Steven is screaming to shoot it and I raise the pistol and pull the trigger. It doesn't shoot. I clear the jam and blow down the barrel and raise it again and pull the trigger. This time I see the bullet hit the thing and it just grunts and stops for a second before it continues forward. I shoot it again, and now that I have it sighted I just keep squeezing the trigger. Just when the gun clicks empty, the thing makes a low whimpering sound again and stops in its tracks. It leans and almost buckles and I guess decides we aren't worth the effort and sort of lumbers off back into the woods. Me and Steven look at each other and have no words. We slowly make our way out of the water, still nervous but with the feeling that the main part is over. The camp is wrecked and we are both wet and cold. The fire is almost dead and we spend a while trying to get it to relight. It catches and we just sit next to it, letting it warm us up and dry us off. It's nearly morning by that time, so we just stay up talking about whatever. At first sign of sunlight we extinguish the fire and pack up. Throw the grease logs into the water and piss on the fire. We make the hike back to the golf course in record time. We sit just out of sight in the woodline and watch the golfers do their thing for a bit. Finish off the power bars and other snacks. Just waiting for night now. We nap on and off. We retreat a bit back into the woods and get a small fire going to dry our socks. Despite everything else that's happened this brief time are some of my favorite memories. The fire was toasty and we ended up cooking some soup and chili which tasted amazing. Talk about school, girls, and the previous night. It's kind of just a weird moment where we aren't really fazed or upset about it. It was scary but here we are. We go check up on the course and there aren't any carts visible so we assume that they've closed. Head back to the camp and pack up, debating running the risk of being spotted vs staying till dark. Fuck it, take the snipers and let's crawl. Take it really slow crawling through the course as it's very open and most anyone could see us if we were moving and if they looked hard enough. All gilled up. At about the halfway mark we hear someone call out to us, "Hey, what's going on over there? I'll call the cops." That is our cue and we get up and start sprinting to the woods bordering our house. We reach the edge of the forest and duck into it. I quickly text my brother to have the back door unlocked. Steven and I pick up the pace and are just sprinting at this point, not really trying to stay hidden. We pass through the small asphalt path that loops through the woods and hop the back fence that leads to my house and we make it inside and lock the door behind us. We change and pack up the gear in storage. Spend the rest of the day playing video games. We ask around but no one really has any concrete answer about anything weird in those woods. We don't want to reveal what we did so we just keep quiet and go about life. Steven and I are still good friends. Pickerel is a meal we cooked. Might be kind of a nothing burger story but it's the only spooky thing that happened to me or close family member / friend. Be ant. Live in rural bumfuck nowhere Idaho. Have a few pigs as pets, mostly pot-bellieds but also one farm pig that got sick and the owner sold instead of butchering. Don't keep pigs for meat, just keep them as pets because they're cute. Wake up one night to pigs squealing from their pen behind the house. Squealing like they're being castrated. Rush downstairs, still in nightgown, throw on some boots and a jacket cause it's like 25 degrees outside. Squealing is just getting louder and louder. Pigs aren't making a single sound. They're all asleep. Squealing starts getting further away. Quickly count the pigs, exact same number as she's always had. Points a flashlight out into the field where the squealing is coming from. Nada. Squealing abruptly stops, like hitting the pause button in the middle of an audio file. WTF. This kept happening for like 2 to 3 nights, and finally stopped when the only non-potbelly went missing. She kept her pigs in her house after that, still has no idea what was going on. It's not really a Greentext but you did just remind me of something. Cousin's cousin works for undertakers. Not sure what her exact role is but she's been there about 30 years and married to the owner for the last 35 years. Don't really know her but been to funerals when she's been there so I do know who she is. Anyhow last year completely out of the blue she left the undertakers and immediately started divorce proceedings. Then everyone, except her, who worked at the undertakers was arrested and it's been temporarily closed ever since. My aunt knows her really well and asked what was going on. She wouldn't even tell her. All she said were vague things like she couldn't believe it and it made her sick and she only found out about whatever it was when they, more specifically her husband, asked her to join. The only things she did give some confirmation on is that it wasn't necrophilia and was something related to what they did in the cemeteries after fresh burials had taken place. And her husband had been involved in whatever it was before she married him. He's about 10 years older than her. Haven't heard anything more since it first happened, but whatever it was fucked up. I asked my mother about it just earlier to see if anything else had came to light since. Not much, but it seems this anon was pretty close. It was something to do with them having orgies on or around the fresh burials and some kind of ritualish/occultish sort of shit. Maybe they were digging them up too for whatever reason, but I do doubt that. Grave robbing was my first guess when I found out it wasn't necro, but I don't think people really do that anymore. Or at least, if it was for monetary gain, it's not something you would be doing after pretty much every burial because not everyone is buried wearing anything worth digging them up for. So mystery semi-solved at least. I'm sorry it's not up to /x/s usual high standards. Still quite spooky I feel. Not my story but my mom's. 1980s, hanging out with friends in NM. Want to check out allegedly haunted cemetery. Go with friends late at night because vibes. Arrive at small cemetery in middle of fucking nowhere, lots of fog and shit. Dark because night, dead silent. Spooky. Wave. Go to leave, spoops too high for our college-aged heroes. Car comes down road, speeding toward us. Friend tries to back up, car says fuck you. Get out of way just as car about to T-bone the fuck out of us. Look in rear view as car passes, asshole car fades into fog. Doesn't drive away, literally vaporizes like it didn't exist. WTF.MP4. Hear quiet growl, look to cemetery. Big ass black dog in fog, blazing red eyes. Hellhound.exe initiates pursuit. Friend peels out and we fuck off back to civilization. Never going back to that place. Living in apartment directly across from police department. Power goes out. In my room, see out of my window a huge blue or green flash that illuminates all to the tops of the trees across the street, around and above the police station. I conclude it was a generator or transformer or whatever just fucking and heroing. Happened again but less incredible light, was definitely green light. Number of years later, I am psychotic as fuck and running on the freeway, yes you read that correctly, in third degree paranoid thinking I needed to follow my rawest impulse, for example. I should have broken the window to a building I could see into, at night, and got some candy from the vending machine I could see. Anyways, I'm post full retard mode and I see a green firework just shoot up in the sky hundreds of feet. Wait, actually it could have been coming down from the sky, which was nuts. Both are weird, the latter is weirder. Maybe a firework just shot up, no visuals, and was supposed to come down like a comet. My family has been vacationing in Moffat, Quebec since the 80s and at other lakes since the 70s. When they finally got to Lac-Saint-Maurice they fell in love with the area and we have been going there ever since. It had a logging bridge that got half burned down at some point before we started going there. Teenagers would light their backs on fire with gasoline and jump off the bridge, which led to the bridge burning down, or so the story goes. The bridge recently burned down completely. People think it was one of the new property owners that built cabins near the bridge and got tired of people going on the bridge. Well, in the early 90s my dad saw something on the lake one night while he was fishing alone, and when asked insisted it was true the rest of his life. Dad does fishing alone one evening all the way to the big lake. On his tiny fishing boat it takes close to an hour to get there. He stays later than he should with no running lights. 90s and no game wardens this far, so who give a fuck? Decides to start heading home because the lake is pitch black at night with no cabins or homes this far out. As he starts on his way back he notices a light behind him. Shit, game warden about to bitch the fuck out dad. Not game warden but a boat that is on fire. What the fuck is that? Gets spooked and starts heading back as fast as he can. Slow piece of shit boat, not gonna make it. Burning boat keeps pace behind him but maintains distance. Every time my dad stops so does the burning boat. If my dad slows down so does the boat. Dad is getting closer to camp and the boat keeps following. Dad goes past old bridge and looks behind him, burning boat is gone. Never sees it again but insists the story is true. We eventually just called it the ghost boat. As far as we know, my dad is the only one that ever saw it. I asked my mom after he died if he just made it up for us kids. Mom says he believed he saw something that night. More. Entity. 1995 approximate. 5-year-old me playing hide and seek in my basement with my brother and sister. Hiding under a clothing rack my parents use for winter clothing. No one can find me and the basement light goes off. Climb out and see an entity at the basement steps. It's just a white outline of a human shape, think chalk outline of body but standing. Lights are blinking where its hands are and it's changing color. Don't feel scared at all. Don't remember what happened afterwards. UFO. Walking home from hospital on clear summer evening. Sky is a pale blue with moon and some stars starting to show even though it's still light out. See a satellite moving across the sky slowly. It stops. It starts moving in another direction slowly at first, then accelerates and disappears. It was moving as fast or faster than a shooting star. Sleep paralysis. 19 Year is 2009. Friend is into meditation and other weird shit. Tells me to do breathing exercises while I lay in bed. Follow his instructions and feel my body fall asleep but my mind is still awake. See weird shit like if you press your eyes really hard. Eventually fall asleep. Wake up and cannot move. Sense presence that wants me to go back to sleep. Vision narrows. Shake my head and hit wall. Wake up again in same position. Dream within a dream. Still cannot move and same sensation. Manage to jerk head again and run out of bedroom. I realized later I gave myself sleep paralysis that night and I've had it ever since. Last time it happened I heard whispering next to my pillow. Another time it was growling above my bed. January 2008. Unseasonably warm weather, high 50s with snow still covering everything at night. Best friend and I decide to go on a night hike in the Cleveland Metro Parks. We know this forest well and grew up exploring it. Snow is covering everything so we can see very well even at night. Decide to tell my friend an eerie folk tale from a weird Indian book. The story is about a tribe of Indians that keep getting their fish stolen from nets at a lake. They hide so they can see which tribe is stealing from them. As they watch, a stone boat comes out of a rock face on the lake and starts coming towards their fishing spot. It has 3 ugly little men on it. The ugly little men start to pull up the net so the Indians yell out. All 3 drop the net and cover their faces with their hands as the boat goes back to the rock wall. As I get to this point in the story, we are near the exit when we hear a noise erupt right behind us, unlike anything either of us has ever heard. We both freeze but the noise continues. The path we are on is at the top of a ravine that overlooks the whole area in both directions. Scan the whole area and see nothing. Noise won't stop, keeps getting louder and sounds like it's coming from all around us now. We both turn and run until we are back on the street. Come back the next morning by myself. Only tracks in the snow are ours. I've heard coyotes all over the woods from various distances and it sounded nothing like them. I've even heard what I can only assume was coyotes taking down a deer. Not like it at all. We have both looked into animal sounds and nothing matches. We even looked into mountain lion sounds. Nothing is comparable. The sound reminded me of the noise that the aliens from Pitch Black made, but only vaguely. The first time I heard coyotes in the woods at night I was alone and it wasn't scary to me. This noise I heard with my best friend sent chills up my spine. It's a feeling I've never experienced since. 2 dimes. Not really spooky but paranormal. Quick backstory. My nephew had passed away in his 30s in 2012, which was devastating to my brother-in-law, call him Bill, and the family. In July 2017, on the 5-year anniversary of his son's death, Bil asked if I wanted to take a ride to visit the grave site/cemetery, and we would make a day of it, as it was a 2-hour drive and we are both photographers and we were heading to rustic scenic country roads/vistas, farms, country stores and the like. Great photo ops. I drove as I thought it was only fitting to do so. Bil's anxiety had shown through when discussing the trip, as he only gets to the grave about once a year and it's emotionally upsetting to him, and rightfully so. We hit the highway Saturday morning well before noon. Beautiful July day, drive is uneventful. We arrive in a small town which is home to the cemetery. We stop for a shot of courage at the local watering hole, which turned to 3 Tito's martinis each. Bil feeling more relaxed. We make our way to the cemetery. Note, cemetery has a dumbass rule that nothing on the ground is allowed, flowers, statues, etc. So people leave little trinkets/gifts on the ledges of the gravestones to show they visited, kinda like markers. Many ignore and leave flowers anyway from my understanding, but new graves or first-year graves are okay. I park as close to the grave site as possible. Bil gets out and heads toward the grave. I stay in the car to allow him personal/private time with his son. Bil's back is to me as he is standing at the gravestone, basically direct line of sight. Beyond the grave about 15 yards is a deer just standing there, staring at him, us. Deer stares for extended length of time, solid min plus, and slowly walks away. I didn't think much of it at the time, just that it was peculiar for a deer to linger with humans around in the open cemetery and not get startled with any movement. Bil was at the grave for a few minutes and I saw him bless himself and then move on to another relative's grave beyond his son's, pickerel. Bil walking beyond son's grave, where the deer approximate was. I stepped out of the vehicle and walked over to the grave. I did my own private prayer and paid respects after Bil. Bil returned and we both stood at his son's resting place. I did the sign of the cross as my bro-in-law placed a dime on the ledge/base of the gravestone. I didn't think I had any change on me but reached into my pocket and sure enough there was 1 dime. I placed it next to his dime, both were face up, side by side, facing right, and touching. We left the cemetery that day feeling uplifted, a good feeling, peaceful and at ease. We stopped for a late lunch and he mentioned the deer. We both thought it was odd how the deer just stared. I suggested it was his son checking on him. He didn't disagree. I dropped him off at his home and went home myself. Sunday. Text message from Bil, very funny, WTF. Me, huh? Bil, the dimes. Me, what dimes? When Bil went to his car the next morning there were 2 dimes on the ground by his driver's side door, both face up, side by side, facing right and touching each other. When I was 8 I had a nightmare kinda similar. I woke up in the middle of the night and just had a compulsion to look out the window by my bed. It was nothing but pitch black darkness, but slowly 2 red eyes appeared in the distance but came closer and closer. Once it came close enough I realized they weren't attached to anything. They came so close to my window. Then I suddenly wondered how it got to my window as I was on the 2nd floor. I was filled with so much dread and near agony. I remember dashing to my bed and hiding under the covers for hours, then waking up in the morning. Chalked it up to a nightmare. Was scared of looking at windows at night for a very long time. I have one, maybe I was sleepwalking, I don't know. Be me 7 or 8 years old. Shopping with my family at sporting goods store. I'm playing video on this cheap handheld game thing. So into game, haven't looked up in forever. Step in something wet, like literal shit. Look down, it's mud. How the fuck did I get outside? Look up, see jungle, looks like Viet fucking Nam. It's nighttime, Asian village people are looking at some light in the distance. Ghostly looking alien people are exiting a brightly lit door. I'm scared as fuck, what tttthe fuck. comes from somewhere out of my throat. The villagers turn towards me, little girl points at me, they all start screaming. I drop the game and wake up to the sound of it hitting the tile floor in the store. Jungle's gone, what the fuck happened, where did I go? I assume I fell asleep standing up. Spend the next 15 minutes trying to find my family.
Mosey on down to the Atomic Shaman trading post. We have t-shirts, decals, refrigerator magnets and other swag for sale. What better way to show your support for the show? Our merch can only be found on t.pub/lit/Atomic Shaman trading post.
Like, share, subscribe and be sure to check the notification bell. Follow the Atomic Shaman on Twitter at Motel and RV Park. Listen to paranormal Greentext stories on Atomic Shaman TTS on YouTube. Catch the live streams of Atomic Shaman Sweat Lodge only on Rumble.